Hello, this is Nada again with another video related to cardiovascular system. If you haven't watched my previous video about heart anatomy, cycle of blood flow and the concepts behind heart sounds, so watch that video first to make your basic concepts. I have mentioned its link in the description below. You guys are really going to find this video very helpful because in this I'm going to talk about action potential graph and will also clarify some terminologies like cardiac output, stroke volume, ejection fraction and few more with the examples. So watch this video till the end and make this topic easy for you. As you are now very clear about the blood flow cycle in the heart and must know that the heart is the only organ in the body which generates its own electrical impulses. Unlike from the other organs in the body, heart does not need signals from the brain to pump blood. Let me make it very clear that autonomic nervous system only enhance the functions of heart or heart rate. SA node or sinoatrial node is a natural pacemaker in the right atrium of the heart. It is like an electrically charged medical device or like a battery which initiates electrical signals or impulses. These impulses travels from SA node to AV node, that is atrioventricular node. While causing atria contractions, these impulses transfer or travel from AV node to the bundle of His. Yes, it's His here, not her. And then Purkinje fibers. This is how the cardiac muscles contract, heart beats, and pump the blood to the body. Before I start the explanation about the graph of action potential, I would like to brief two terms that would be very much helpful in understanding of the graph. First is depolarization, that means inward current. It is the change in the cell which carries positive charge or positive ion into the cell, which makes cell less negatively charged and cell is depolarized. Second terminology is repolarization, means outward current. It is change in the membrane potential that returns to a negative value just after depolarization, means cell is negative again. So a cell becomes depolarized, either positive charge moves inside the cell or negative charge leaves the cell. Similarly, a cell becomes repolarized when either negative charge moves inside the cell or positive charge leaves the cell. Okay, so here is the graph that we need to understand. The normal resting potential or the membrane potential in the cardiac cell is minus 90 millivolt. That means there is more negative charge or negative ions inside the cell as compared to the outside the cell. When there is an action potential initiates from the pacemaker, there is an influx of sodium and calcium ions. Sodium and calcium ions through the channels move inside the cardiac cells that start to make cell positive, and this is depolarization. This is labeled as phase 0 in the graph, and it reaches to the value of 0 and then it reaches to plus 20. At this time, sodium and calcium channels close and potassium channels open. Potassium ions start moving outside the cell, leaves the cell. This is potassium efflux. Cell potential decreases from plus 20 to 0. This is called early repolarization. and it is labeled as phase 1 in the graph. Just after a while, calcium channels also open and calcium ions start moving inside the cardiac cells. So potassium ions moving outside the cell, there is potassium efflux, and calcium ions moving inside the cell means calcium influx. This gives the plateau phase or phase 2 in the graph. That means the membrane potential is constant. There is no change in the membrane potential. Then calcium channels close and only potassium channels are still open. There is potassium efflux, potassium ions leaving the cardiac cells cause decline in the cell membrane potential to minus 90 millivolts again, and this is phase 3 repolarization. Cell become repolarized and then reaches to the value of minus 90 millivolts or phase 4, and the cell is ready again for next action potential. I hope now this action potential graph would be much easy for you to understand and to keep remember easily. Okay, so now we'll explain you this ECG or EKG or electrocardiogram. This ECG normally tells you about the heart rhythm or tells you about the normal heart rate that you can see in your ECG report. This P wave in the ECG indicates when SA node, sinoatrial node fires, means it initiates electrical impulses that causes right and left atrium contraction or when atria are depolarized. From P to Q, this distance indicates when electrical impulses travels from SA node to AV node. It's the time of the signals, right? Reaches to AV node from SA node. This QRS complex, which is seen quite prominent in the graph, it's quite pointed. This is like ventricular depolarization, which is like the firing of AV node. In this QRS complex, Q is the depolarization of intraventricular septum. R is mainly the depolarization of the mass of the ventricles, and S is the last phase of ventricular depolarization, which is at the base of the heart apex, which causes the whole ventricular's contraction. Now this S to T, this ST is the plateau phase as we discussed in the action potential graph. This is like when the ventricles contract and it pumps the blood. So this is that plateau, like a little pause. It takes the time when the whole ventricles contract. And T waves is like ventricle repolarization. This is the ventricular diastole. This is like if you have seen anyone's ECG report, so it comes like this. Okay, so now some terminologies that I want to explain. First is like cardiac output. The cardiac output, as the name indicates, it's like the output what's coming out from the heart, right? So the cardiac output can be calculated if you know the stroke volume and the heart rate. Okay, cardiac output is the amount or the volume of blood which ejects out from the heart in 1 minute. Cardiac output is always calculated in minutes, while the stroke volume is same as the cardiac output, but stroke volume is that amount of blood which ejects out from the heart in one beat. Means when one's heart beats, it's contracts. So what amount of blood it ejects out in that one beat, that is stroke volume, and the amount of blood which ejects out in 1 minute, that is the cardiac output. So cardiac output can easily be calculated if you multiply the stroke volume with the heart rate or with the number of beats. So first we will calculate or the stroke volume, then we'll come again to find out the cardiac output. Okay, so as I explained that stroke volume is that amount of blood which ejects out from the heart in one beat. So how can we find out stroke volume? Stroke volume can be found out by subtracting end systolic volume from the end diastolic volume. Now, what are these two? What is diastolic volume and systolic? You must know the terms diastole and systole. Diastole means when ventricles relax and systole means when ventricles contract. Okay, so I have put it the number values here to make it easy for you. Okay, so end diastolic volume is when ventricles relax. So the amount of blood which is filled in the ventricles, that is end diastolic volume. So let's suppose when the ventricles relax, it's 100 ml of blood which is filled in the ventricles. So that is EDV, end diastolic volume. Okay, then ventricles contract, that is systole, right? And after the ventricles contract, blood eject out, but there is still some amount of blood which is left in the ventricles. That is end systolic volume, which is ESV. So let's suppose there was 100 ml blood filled in the ventricles, that is the diastolic volume. Ventricles contract, blood eject out, but after the contraction there is still some amount of blood which is left in the ventricles, that is ESV, end systolic volume, and let's suppose that is 40 ml. So if you subtract that's 40 ml from 100 ml, you will get 60 ml. So the 60 ml is the stroke volume. It is that amount of blood which ejects out from the heart in one beat. Okay, so I guess now you are clear how to find out stroke volume. Okay, so if you know the stroke volume, I can go back again to the formula of cardiac output. Like now, if I know stroke volume, I multiply it with the number of heartbeat in 1 minute. That's almost 72 to 80. So I can easily find out cardiac output. Means if the stroke volume is 60 ml, means 60 ml blood ejects out in one beat, and their heart beats 80 times per minute. So it's 4800 ml blood ejects out from the heart in 1 minute. Okay, so the last terminology that I need to explain is the ejection fraction. As the name indicates, ejection fraction means it's the measurement or the percentage of how much blood pumps out with each contraction, right? So that indicates the ejection fraction, the percentage of the blood, right? So we can calculate this ejection fraction if you know the stroke volume means the amount of blood ejects out from the heart in one beat over end diastolic volume means the volume of the blood which is filled in the ventricles when they are relaxed, and multiply by percentage because it's somehow the percentage that we need to find out. So the stroke volume that we had calculated was 60 ml and it's 100 ml, that's the EDV, end diastolic volume. So if you find out, so the ejection fraction here is 60%. It means the 60% of the total blood which is there in the ventricles is eject out into the body or pumped out to the body, and the normal value for the ejection fraction is 55 to 70%. That is for the normal individuals. I'm pretty sure that you guys would really find this video very helpful, and it would really enhance your concepts and understanding regarding the action potential graph and the waves in the ECG. And so please show your love and support. Kindly subscribe my channel, like the video, comment if you need to ask anything, share my videos and channel link within your circle, within your friends, and stay tuned for more conceptual videos. Stay safe, take care, till then, bye bye.